If the Irish were granted a parliament and a cabinet, Scotland would demand a parliament and a cabinet, and the Welsh would do the same. But if all those parliaments were passed, an unconstitutional injustice would be done to Cornwall, which was a separate country, geographically, and had a distinct radical history and population, an ancient national language, an ancient national tradition, and an ancient national legendary of its own. On these grounds, which are set up as good reasons for granting separate and independent governments in other parts, the claims of Cornwall could not be overlooked to a separate and independent government. Those words make a powerful case for Cornwall to be granted constitutional equality with the other Celtic nations, and they appear in the publication. But what is surprising, perhaps, is the reference suggests that they were actually spoken back in 1889, not in 2023. Even more surprising, perhaps, is the fact that they featured in a speech given not by a Cornish patriot, but by Lord Salisbury, the British Prime Minister. He did not say them as an endorsement of the Cornish case. It was more an attempt to problematise the entire cause of devolution. But Salisbury's comments are significant for three very good reasons that keep reoccurring throughout the book. So I'd like to focus on this as a way of promoting the book. Firstly, historical legitimacy. Every cause needs historical legitimacy. We are not a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys. In fact, we are gathered in this room today in search of a future for Kernow, but it is important that we gain knowledge and inspiration from the argument that was accepted, the cultural argument that Cornwall was different back in the 19th century. Even then, there were individuals like Sylvanus Trevail who were not content with the Cornwall County Council that was introduced in 1889, but actually felt that we should be more ambitious and have our own parliament, control of the future. Even then, they were not individuals, as we said, like Sylvanus Trevail. But the second point is this: Cornwall is problematic. Cornwall keeps being problematic. That's what Salisbury was actually saying at the time. And we see this recurring throughout time. We see it in the Kilbrandon report in the 1970s, when the people associated with that report could only offer Cornwall being considered as a duchy, no attempt to actually say that we should have a parliament like Scotland and Wales. And we can see this too in more recent decades. We can see it at the turn of this century when Tony Blair, rather than actually reinvigorating the cause of assemblies and devolutions throughout what he saw as the English regions, instead went for the north-east and totally ignored the case of Cornwall, the 50,000 signatures. A travesty. But that was suddenly what was seen. We were seen as a problem to raise that central government actually sees this issue. And we can too see it at the present day. As Dick mentioned earlier, Cornwall not even mentioned in the Brown report. The incoming Labour government, no doubt, we could say, or certainly the likely consequence of the next general election, and Cornwall's not even mentioned. It's something that is not about today, it's something that keeps being referred to throughout time. And then there's the third point, which comes out through Salisbury's speech: Cornwall as an equal Celtic nation. Salisbury's declaring back in 1889 that it would be a constitutional injustice if we were denied a parliament, in contrast to the Irish, Scots and Welsh. That was 134 years ago. And that constitutional injustice is even more evident since we have become the forgotten nation. Not only are we denied a parliament, unlike our Celtic cousins, we are represented in the British and Irish Council by English ministers, rather than be treated as equal partners. Even in regards to the Cornish language, we've got to actually depend on government ministers representing us. Our territorial integrity is still not guaranteed in regards to parliamentary constituencies. The fear of Devon War may have been put to one side, but it has not been removed. And also, we can see the failed attempt to impose a mayor of Cornwall as being based more on the latest trends in English local government rather than genuine respect for us, as we might expect, being a national minority. So that is the background to the book, but it begs the question, what next for Curnow? Cornish democracy is intended to contribute to the debate over our future in the aftermath of the Level 3 fiasco by covering the historical foundations of our political culture before looking at other issues, the economic framework for devolution, the role of town and parish councils, an issue that Joni has actually written about in the publication, and ways that we can develop a clearer roadmap in the direction of a greater autonomy. Should we also embrace the idea of a Cornish constitution? There's a contribution in the book by two Welsh academics who are putting forward a similar idea for that of Wales. Why shouldn't Cornwall think about a constitution? Doesn't necessarily mean you've got to be an independent nation for a constitution. We need to think about that process now. So I'll conclude by going back to the book, but also another extract which is included. Now, I started off with the speech of Salisbury. I'm going to actually say some of the words that was written by, or said rather, by a Cornish MP back in the 1970s, and that's John Pardoe. In the 1960s, he was not just a Liberal MP, he took great pride in being a member of Mebby and Curnow at the same time. And as we see, the Kilbrandon report refused to actually give any idea of devolution to Cornwall. They did say, oh, you can be a duchy. So this is what Pardoe said in the House of Commons. It is not enough to say that Cornwall can have the powers or the rights that Whitehall or Westminster is prepared to hand out. The crumbs on the rich man's table, so to speak. Whitehall and Westminster can only have the powers that the peoples of Cornwall, Scotland and Wales are prepared to let them have. We gave the central government powers, and we can take back control, another word that we were saying earlier, and we shall, Pardoe said. And I feel that even more should be the case now. Where is the progress? We're in 2023. The ideas of Cornish devolution were being advanced in the 19th century. We need to take the lead, and we need to take back control. Thank you very much. Moraz.